What looked like a grieving widow's private tragedy quickly turned into something far darker. Secret trusts, shell companies, forged signatures, fake invoices, and a dead husband who had been quietly building a case before he died. As the evidence surfaced, so did the terrifying possibility that the people closest to her were not protecting her at all. They were positioning her to take the fall.
6 months pregnant, I watched painters in our Chicago condo. My husband's financial planner called, his voice tense. You should come to my office now, and please come alone. We found a private trust. I left the painters, my pulse frantic. When I saw the file with Ethan's handwriting, I knew his secrets were about to break my world apart. I'm glad you're here with me. Tell me where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all. As a heads up, this story is a mix of fact and fiction to protect identities. Any resemblance to real people is a coincidence. The raw emotion, however, is completely true. It all began with that call. I was trying to choose a wall color nearly a year after Ethan's death, a year of waking up to an empty space beside me, a year of pretending I was okay when I was breaking. The simple task of painting was a welcome distraction until my phone rang. I felt a pang of guilt for even thinking of ignoring it, but an instinct told me to answer. The caller ID was Mark Gable, our financial advisor. The message was brief but alarming. Mrs. Hayes, I need you to come in today, and please come by yourself. A cold dread washed over me. I looked at the cheerful paint swatches and suddenly felt sick. I grabbed my purse, rushed out, and called him back. Mark, what is this about? I fought to keep my voice steady. His tone was clipped, professional, but tight. I've uncovered something in Ethan's estate portfolio. You need to see this. Just you. Is something wrong? My mind raced with terrible possibilities. No, but he hesitated. I believe your husband wanted you to see this privately. Please come down. He hung up. Ethan left something for me. The elevator ride down from our high rise felt like an eternity. I was clutching my bag so tightly my knuckles were bone white. What secret could Ethan have kept? And why did Mark sound so grave? Ethan died in a car crash on a mountain road. He was 38, a brilliant architect, and notoriously cautious. We had built Hayes and Russo designs together with his partner Sophia. Why would he hide anything? The familiar quiet of our home now felt heavy with dread. Mark was waiting in the lobby of his building, his face grim. The estate review wasn't the main issue, he said quietly. He led me into a sterile conference room. The large portfolio that usually sat on his desk had been moved. I could see a smaller private file folder set apart from the rest. Someone was accessing this recently. Do you see this account? I nodded, my throat too dry to form words. Next to our joint assets, a separate trust account was listed. I had never heard of it. Mark pointed to the beneficiary line. The payments here were flagged. Someone was trying to access the full principal a few days ago. When they were denied, it triggered a review, which is why I called you. Someone else knows about this account. Mark nodded. And the trust, it's not for you? It lists another primary beneficiary. Do you want me to stay? Yes, please. My hand trembled as I reached for the document. It opened easily. Inside was a single beneficiary designation. On top, a note in Ethan's script. For Olivia. Only? I held my breath and read the document. It wasn't encrypted. Inside were meticulously detailed payment schedules, a list of assets, and a single sealed letter labeled Read Me. A beneficiary name was listed on the document, the name of my best friend Sophia. Mark took a step back. This is a personal matter. I will be outside if you need me. He left, shutting the door softly, and I was alone. The room smelled of old paper and leather. I could almost imagine Ethan there, waiting for me to learn his terrible truth. With shaking hands, I opened the letter. The first line was a dagger to my heart. Olivia, if you are reading this, I am gone, and it means you know that Sophia is carrying our child. I stopped breathing. Sophia, my Sophia. This had to be a nightmare. It had to be a nightmare. My phone buzzed in my purse. I fumbled to get it out. It was a text from Sophia herself. Thinking of you. Want to get manicures tomorrow. The timing was cruel, a twisted coincidence. I look back at the trust documents detailing a future I was never part of and the letter I had barely begun. Whatever Ethan had done, it was big enough to hide in a secret trust. Someone else knew about it, and now I had to understand why. I sat in the cold leather chair and made myself read more. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. This couldn't wait. I read his words aloud, just to make them feel real. Olivia, if you are reading this, I am gone. Sophia has been my mistress for 2 years. Over $1 million is in this trust for her. She created it using our firm's secondary accounts. I have the proof. But it is far worse than money. She planned to frame you. She had drafted documents to dissolve your stake in my estate. She created fake emails from your account to suggest you were planning to divorce me. I confronted her in January. She threatened to destroy everything. I agreed to the trust because she is my partner and I didn't want this to ruin our company. She didn't stop. She pushed for more. By March, I knew she was a danger to us. This letter has everything. The access code is our most precious memory. If you are here, she tried to access the funds, which triggered a security alert. I was supposed to see our lawyer Warren the day after the crash. I should have told you right away. I was trying to protect our family. That was a fatal mistake. Everything you need to know is in my files. Finish this for us. I love you, Ethan. P.S. Don't trust her. My own best friend had secured over $450,000 from my husband and set me up to lose everything. My husband, Ethan, had discovered it. He had spent a year documenting her scheme, sitting across from her in meetings as if nothing was amiss. He died the night before he was going to tell me everything. The police said it was a tragic accident, a slick road on a dark night. But now I knew the stress must have been a factor. A heavy, sickening feeling crept over me. A simple car crash felt like a cruel irony. I pushed the thought aside and looked back at the private file. The transfers were all there, documented in cold, hard numbers. I reviewed them, my hands shaking. Almost $40,000 per month. A mix of transfers and direct payments. Ethan must have been trying to track it. Careful not to alert Sophia. Below the statements was a thick folder of legal drafts. I pulled them out. 4 years of partnership agreements, each with a clause highlighted in blue ink next to the name Sophia Russo. Ethan had filled the margins with his notes, calculations, question marks, and circled clauses. On the very last page, he had written in red ink, total exposure $452,500 and counting. A slim black thumb drive was labeled in his precise script for Olivia proof. I set it aside and found the single key he'd mentioned. Taped to the back of the file was a small brass key with a tag that read, The Charleston Depository, Unit 317. He had a storage unit I never knew about. A soft knock on the conference room door made me jump. Mark, is everything okay? He was our financial advisor. I realized I had been sitting there for nearly an hour, my body aching. I need a moment, I said, my voice hoarse. Mark stood in the doorway. The account has been frozen. The network is secure now, ma'am, but you should know this trust was accessed multiple times this past year. He offered me his card. If this becomes a legal matter, I can provide the full access history. I saw the records, the exact times of access. Thank you, Mark. He gave a slight nod and left, his quiet footsteps disappearing down the hall. I was alone with the evidence of my best friend's betrayal. I carried the documents to my car. It was after 1 p.m. Hours had passed since I had gotten to his office. The city felt completely silent. At home, I plugged the thumb drive into my laptop, and the password field appeared instantly. I typed our anniversary, October 5th, 2017. Access denied. Ethan's words from his letter echoed in my mind. The password is our deepest sorrow, the one thing we never speak of, our private grief. What sadness had we shared that Sophia could not possibly know? By midnight, I had tried 20 different passwords. All of them failed. I had worked through all the logical choices, my fingers growing numb as the hours passed in the dark living room. Only the screen's glow lit my face. Anniversary, October 5th, 2017. Denied? My birthday, May 20th, 1985. Denied. Ethan's birthday, November 4th, 1981. Denied. Our address, King Street. Denied. The firm's name, Hayes and Russo. Denied. I tried every combination of our names I could think of. Olivia Ethan, Ethan Olivia, all denied. The Chicago zip code, 60611, denied. I was getting nowhere. I typed in another password attempt, feeling hopeless. Legacy, promise, Olivia. Each denial was a fresh wave of grief. By 10 p.m., I had tried everything I could think of. The cursor blinked rhythmically, a tiny mocking heartbeat on the screen. I wanted to smash the laptop against the wall, but it held the only secret Ethan had left me. I leaned back, the screen's glow making my eyes ache. His favorite Bruins mug sat on the coaster beside me. I hadn't moved a single one of his things. His jacket was still on the back of the dining chair where he'd tossed it. They were just ordinary fragments of a life that was now shattered. My eyes fell on the note I'd found in his desk. The key is the day our world changed. A change, not a beginning, not a celebration. What was the one devastating loss we had shouldered together, telling no one? The kitchen clock showed 11:30 at night. It was late, but I couldn't face this alone. I grabbed my phone and called Chloe. We'd been best friends since our days at Boston College, from 2008 to 2012. She was my rock, the one who held me up at Ethan's service. If anyone could help me make sense of this, it was her. She picked up on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. Amelia, it's almost midnight. I found something, Chloe. Ethan left a locked folder for me. I need you. Can you come over? Her tone shifted instantly. Are you okay? Is everything secure? I'm fine. I need you here. 20 minutes. Chloe lived 15 minutes away, but always planned for traffic, even at this hour. She was a forensic accountant, methodical in everything. Just as she said, my doorbell rang at 12:05. She was 41, her blonde hair in a messy bun. She was divorced, childless, and loyal to a fault. Tonight, she was in sweatpants and an old BC Eagles hoodie. Okay, she said, her sharp eyes taking everything in as she secured the door behind her. Start from the beginning. I showed her the encrypted folder on the server, the note, the odd credit card charges, Ethan's meticulous financial records. She read his cryptic note twice, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she looked at me, her gaze piercing. Olivia, your sister, Olivia. I could barely nod. $800,000 in 3 years. Chloe let out a low whistle. This isn't just sloppy bookkeeping, Amelia. This is calculated. She was funneling funds and trying to cover her tracks. That scheming, Chloe stopped herself, a rare moment of restraint. I admired her for never holding back. A hollow, tired sound that might have been a laugh escaped me. Chloe sat with me at the kitchen table. All right, the password. The day our world changed. What have you tried? I pointed to the list on a legal pad. She glanced over it. Amelia, these are happy moments. Your wedding, the day you closed on this condo, the startup's launch. She tapped the note. He said the world changed. What's the one painful thing you two endured that no one else knows about? Her expression softened. Not even me. My breath caught. There was only one event Ethan ever referred to that way. The secret grief we never shared with anyone. Not my parents, not Olivia, certainly not Chloe. My voice was barely audible. I think I have it. Chloe leaned in. What was it? I shook my head, not ready to say it aloud. First, I need to see the spreadsheets, to understand. She didn't push. She was the best kind of friend. Okay, she said softly. Let's look at the damage. Let's see what she did. We pushed my notepad aside and opened the main file. 3 years of spreadsheets opened up, a digital trail of betrayal. Nexus Strategic. March 2021, $7,500. Chloe read the first entry Ethan had flagged. She met my eyes. Is that a real vendor? I shook my head slowly. I've never heard of them. Month after month, for 3 years, the pattern repeated. Nexus Strategic for synergy consulting. Nexus Strategic for brand development. The vendor name was consistent. The line items were corporate nonsense, and the payments were always just under the $10,000 threshold for an automatic review. It was meaningless business speak. Chloe focused on the name. Nexus. Isn't that what Olivia called her senior marketing project in college? She married Mark Nexus in 2019, a year before this started. Chloe pulled out her phone, opened the calculator, and started punching in the numbers Ethan had highlighted. The total climbed alarmingly. 200,000, 500,000. Finally, she set her phone on the table. $810,000. Ethan was right. I did the math in my head. That's over $20,000 a month. For 3 years. Our company consults on architectural projects. That averages to almost 30,000 a month in consulting fees. Chloe zoomed in on a transaction. For what services exactly? That's the thing. Olivia never attended a single client meeting. She showed up at company parties maybe twice a year. Chloe clicked on another file, pointing to the details. So, where did the money end up? I motioned to an account number on an invoice. In there, Ethan had highlighted it in bright red. We scrolled down. Ethan had left a comment. X74C NXS, Olivia's personal investment account per bank trace. Personal, not a business vendor. Chloe leaned back, her face grim. She wasn't providing services, she was just siphoning money. I nodded, a cold sickness spreading through me. Ethan had left comments in several files. The first one was from August 2022. His note said invoice source unclear, confirm with O. He knew something was wrong even then, but his detailed log didn't start until November 2022. November. Czech State Corporate Registry, January, no record of services, April 2023. Forged signatures, IP trace. His notes became more urgent. By October 2023, after he confronted Olivia and gave her until the new year to repay, they were chilling. The last entry was from May 2024, meeting with Franklin June 3rd. He had everything he needed. He died on June 1st, 2 days before he could meet his attorney. I stared at the screen, my throat tight. He was so close to stopping her. Chloe put a hand on my arm, her voice gentle. He did all the work for you, Amelia. He built the entire case. I just sat there, unable to speak. Chloe's tone hardened, shifting into professional mode. I run background checks on shell corporations constantly. I can look up Nexus Strategic right now. Can you do it this late? She was already on her laptop. These databases are live 24/7. First thing tomorrow, wait, it's Tuesday. I'll pull the records in less than 5 minutes, she said. If it's a legitimate LLC, it'll have a registration, an EIN, a physical address, and if it isn't, it's just a digital ghost. That's federal wire fraud, Amelia. With this kind of money, she let the sentence hang in the air. If she embezzled this, it's a major federal crime. The silence in the apartment was deafening. Amelia, Chloe said quietly, looking at the totals. If she did this, she's looking at significant prison time, years. But she's my sister. She's a con artist who was destroying your husband's company. I couldn't argue. Chloe tapped the screen. Ethan gave her from October 2023 to January 2024. The log is clear, and it says she didn't repay a single dollar. She just created more fake invoices. Chloe met my eyes directly. She had an opportunity to make it right. She chose to keep going. I looked at the spreadsheets, at Ethan's careful notes, at the red flags on every transfer. My sister had stolen over $800,000 from the company he built. She'd invented a fake firm, and when Ethan gave her a chance, she doubled down on the lie. What am I supposed to do with this? I asked. My voice barely a whisper. Chloe's tone was resolute. Tonight, I'll get you the corporate registration or lack thereof. By lunchtime, we'll have our proof. And then you hire a lawyer. Ethan mentioned a Mr. Franklin in his log. That's your first call. Should I reach out to him? Yes, but wait until I confirm Nexus is a shell. Go to him with a finished case. I nodded, feeling the weight of exhaustion. The time on my laptop was 1:52 a.m. Chloe logged out of her system. You have to get some sleep. Call me the second you wake up. I'm fine. You go home and rest. You're sure? I'm sure. Her face disappeared from the screen. I was alone again, surrounded by evidence. 38 months of lies, $810,000. My sister's deep-seated jealousy. exposed in rows and columns. At 2:03 a.m., my phone lit up. Who messages this late? I looked at the screen. It was my mother, Catherine. A text message? Can't get back to sleep. Thinking about you. Have you had a chance to sort through Ethan's work computer? Call me when you get this. I read the words again. 2:03 a.m. She was awake, asking about Ethan's laptop. Why this? Why tonight, 10 months after his death? Was she suddenly interested in his business records? I didn't reply. I just saved a screenshot of the message. A cold dread washed over me. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep. At 7:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a call. It was my mother. I took a breath and answered. Mom! Catherine's voice was unnaturally bright. Amelia, honey, just wanted to see how you were. It was her first call in over a month. She'd been so distant since the accident. Leaving a void between us, I didn't know how to feel. I always assumed she blamed me for not seeing the pressure he was under, for not saving him. How are things? Catherine asked. The firm is okay. The conversation felt stiff, scripted. Then she said, Have you started organizing Ethan's office computer yet? His company files. My internal alarms blared. Why do you bring that up? Catherine paused just a fraction too long. It's been 10 months. Sometimes organizing can be therapeutic. I've started to look through a few things, I said, choosing my words carefully. Her voice tightened. The business financials or just his personal folders? Both. Is there something you're worried I'll find? There was a long silence. No, Catherine said finally. It's just if you find anything that seems odd, any financial discrepancies, you should really speak with Olivia first. She has an instinct for that part of the industry. I tightened my grip on the phone. You're saying I should ask Chloe about Ethan's project accounts? She was his lead interior designer. She would spot a bogus vendor payment immediately. My mother was steering me somewhere. For what reason? What was she hiding? I'll consider it, I told her, my tone hollow. Perfect, I've got to go. A chat later. The line went dead. No goodbye, no warmth, just silence. I stood in the study, phone still in my hand. Her timing was suspicious. A text at 3 in the morning. A call at 8 a.m. about Ethan's accounts. Was someone feeding her lines? I glanced toward the walk-in closet at the old leather briefcase on the top shelf. The lock was still on it, but it was slightly ajar, not fully latched as I'd last seen it. When did I last move it? I couldn't remember. Maybe last winter looking for old tax files. Or was that longer? I inspected the door to his study. No marks, no forced entry. But anyone who knew the building's security code could get in. Family would know. Chloe had been over countless times. She knew the layout, our routines, and the code to the service elevator. Ethan had complained about the briefcase lock being stuck about a month ago, in late October. I had prenatal appointments 2 or 3 afternoons a week. The condo was empty from 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. on those days. Plenty of time for a visitor. At 9:30 that morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. Hey you, thinking of you, miss our chats. We need to do brunch soon. Her cheerful tone felt like a physical blow. Our last real talk was at his memorial service 9 months ago. We used to be inseparable. Chloe was 5 years younger, 34 to my 39, the adored baby sister. She married a stable software engineer, Ben, in 2016. No children. They lived downtown. She had been Ethan's design consultant since 2018, a title I now saw as a total fabrication. I reread her message. Two things struck me. The timing was deliberate. Mom at 8:15, Chloe at 9:30. My sister hadn't initiated a conversation in months, but now suddenly wants brunch. They were coordinating. One or both of them feared I was close to uncovering something. I wrote back, choosing each word. Sounds nice. How's Friday at 1 p.m.? I had to look her in the eye and watch her perform. Chloe's reply came back instantly. Amazing. That new place on Rush Street. Can't wait. Her use of exclamation points felt forced. Just another scene in this awful production. I texted, see you there, then set my phone down. She had no idea I found the encrypted drive. She didn't know about Ethan's private logs. She was oblivious to the $658,000 she had siphoned from him. She could believe I was still in the dark. I would play my part in this charade. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Julia. I'm at the office. I ran a search on Chloe Designs LLC. It was incorporated in November of 2017, a month before she officially partnered with your husband. My stomach twisted. Julia's voice was grim. It's a sole proprietorship under her name, Chloe Vance. No staff, no physical address, just a P.O. box in Milwaukee. It's a ghost company, Olivia. Its only function was to bill your husband's firm. Julia paused. Olivia, this was planned. She created the shell corporation before she issued the first invoice. She intended this from the very beginning. Yes. The line was quiet for a moment. I could faintly hear the city noise from Julia's window, a world apart from my silent apartment. What's the next step? Julia asked gently. I have to call that investigator, Mr. Sterling, the one Ethan had an appointment with. Do you want me to be there? Not quite yet, I said, but it's coming. After hanging up, I picked up my tablet and searched for Arthur Vance, Private Investigations Chicago. A minimalist website appeared. Vance Solutions, focusing on corporate fraud and domestic disputes. The phone number was displayed clearly at the top. My finger hovered over the screen. Ethan had a meeting with this man scheduled for March 1st. He had an aneurysm on February 28th. I pressed the number. 3 days later, I watched my sister Chloe walk into the restaurant, her smile as dazzling and artificial as ever. I had picked a secluded booth at 10 minutes to 1, wanting a clear view of her entrance. The River North Bistro was alive with a Thursday lunch crowd. The air smelled of roasted garlic and fresh bread. A low hum of conversation was all around me, broken by the clinking of glasses and the distant sizzle from the kitchen. I wanted a moment to observe Chloe without her mask on. At 2 minutes to 1, she breezed in, a new Celine bag on her arm. Was that purchased with her husband Ben's tech salary or with Ethan's stolen $500,000? Her dark hair was perfectly blown out, a glossy style that cost at least $200. She wore a tailored wool coat over a cashmere sweater and dark jeans. Every detail was curated and flawless. The leather boots, the delicate gold necklace, the expert makeup. She looked like a woman with nothing at all to hide. The smile that lit up her face when she saw me was radiant and rehearsed. She wove through the tables and gave me a tight, awkward hug, her designer perfume overwhelming me. You look exhausted, she remarked, holding me at arm's length to inspect my face. Are you sleeping at all? I offered a faint smile. It comes and goes. We slid into the booth. A waiter with a kind smile appeared promptly. I ordered a ginger ale. Chloe got a mimosa with extra prosecco. So, Chloe started, folding her hands on the table. How are you really doing? Getting by, I said. The foundation keeps me busy. She nodded with practiced sympathy. It's so important to have a focus. It really helps. Then the trivialities began. We discussed the unseasonably warm fall weather, how lovely the city looked. We touched on the holidays. Did I have plans? Would I be at our aunt's gathering? Chloe was having a small dinner at her place with just her, Ben, and another couple. I was welcome to come. I'll think about it, I told her. She leaned forward, her voice becoming a conspiratorial whisper. I talked to Mom yesterday. She says you haven't been answering her calls. She's getting worried. Grief isn't a straight line, Chloe, I said, my voice empty. I know that. She placed her cold hand on mine. I just hate the thought of you rattling around that big condo all by yourself. It's just so much for one person. It's all right, she said, her voice a little too soothing. You know, if you ever feel this house is too much, Carter and I can find a buyer. The market in Chicago is booming. She suggested a quiet apartment downtown would be a new beginning. Was she trying to push me out, to separate me from my late husband's studio and his work? I sipped my water. I'm not ready for that, but thank you. I saw a flicker of irritation in Sarah's eyes before she smiled. I pivoted. I was curious about the gallery deal you helped Mark with. You were his art consultant, weren't you? Briefly, she said, tapping her spoon against her cup. I closed my advisory firm last spring. The overhead was just too much for the commissions I was pulling in. What was your role exactly? Her response was polished, almost rehearsed. I focused on artist sourcing and market analysis. I handled negotiations with galleries, curated collections for corporate clients, and built out their acquisition strategy. Oh, did you have access to his private inventory system? I inquired. Limited for cataloging. Why do you ask? Her tone was airy, but her gaze sharpened. I kept my voice neutral. I'm just trying to inventory Mark's collection. I've started going through his digital archive, trying to organize it all. The number of documents, appraisals, auction records, insurance forms is staggering. Sarah's hand, which was adjusting her scarf, went still. Her shoulders tensed just slightly. You're digging into his business records? Yes, old acquisition forms, private sale authorizations, payment ledgers. Mark kept everything. Find anything interesting? She asked. I offered a small shrug. Just a lot of financial records that are difficult to trace without knowing the context. Sarah set her cup down and leaned in, her face a perfect picture of sympathy. If you need an expert eye, I could come by. I understand how those private art deals are structured. I could help you sort through it. That's very thoughtful. No, Kate, I mean it, she pushed, her voice earnest. Some of those sale records can seem odd if you don't know the story behind the piece. I wouldn't want you to misread something and worry for no reason. There it was, asterisk, misread asterisk. She feared I would correctly trace her fraudulent commissions. I'll keep that in mind, I said. I changed topics, my tone deliberately light. Oh, speaking of the house, the strangest thing happened. The climate control system in the art studio failed last week. Sarah's eyes met mine for a brief, unguarded moment. The climate control? That sounds serious. Not really. The repairman who came said the external power conduit had been disconnected. He mentioned it looked like it was done on purpose. Oh, she took a long sip of her tea. It's an older building. The systems are probably just failing. Perhaps, I said, but the really odd thing was the canvas drop cloth in front of Mark's private vault was bunched up, as if someone had dragged something heavy across it recently. Sarah placed her cup back on the saucer with meticulous care. Did you move it? No, I've barely been in the studio. Her smile felt brittle. Mark must have moved it before he. The repairman checked the maintenance logs. The system was manually overridden for 3 hours about a month ago. He was sure of the date. How strange. I watched her process the information. Seeing a hint of alarm, she quickly hid. Did the repairman find anything else? She asked. He noted some deep scratches around the vault's keypad, like someone tried to pry the panel off with a screwdriver. Sarah's expression became a blank mask. That's horrible. Do you think someone broke in? I'm not sure. There was no forced entry, but I'm planning to upgrade the entire security system with more cameras, just to be safe. An excellent idea, she said, a bit too fast. You should absolutely do it. Carter can even help you pick a system. He's an expert on that kind of tech. I'll consider it. The conversation moved on. Sarah asked about my parents, wondered if my sister and I had reconciled, and asked about my new project at the museum. The talk wound down over the next 15 minutes. There was no confession, no breakdown, but her guilt was obvious. The way her hand stopped moving when I brought up the digital archive, the overly polished, vague description of her consulting work, the immediate offer to help me to control what I saw and concluded, the warning not to misread things, and then the visible fear about the studio system failure, her stiffness when I described the vault, the too keen offer to help install new cameras, to know exactly where my blind spots were. She wanted what was in that vault. She was the one who had tried to get inside. She was the one who had been in my house. At 2:35 we were finished. I paid the bill. Sarah made a weak attempt to protest, but I waved it off. We walked out into the cool autumn afternoon. The sky was a pale, flat gray. Sarah gave me a farewell hug, her embrace feeling stiff and unfamiliar. Call me any time, okay? She said warmly. I worry about you. I will, I lied. the words feeling like ash in my mouth. We walked to our separate cars. I got in, closed the door, and just sat, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah was deeply involved. Every part of our lunch was a confirmation. Her eagerness to explain the archives, her reaction to the vault tampering, her sudden interest in new security. She was trying to get in front of whatever I might find to manage the story. She had been in my home, she had tried to get into Mark's vault, and now she knew I was close to figuring out why. I started the car and drove away, my mind racing. I was pulling into my garage when my phone buzzed with a new email. It was from a burner account, no name attached. The message was one short line. Some collections are meant to stay private. Stop digging into your husband's business. I stared at the words, my heart pounding in my chest. I forwarded it to my lawyer David, then sent a text. Just got an anonymous warning. It came right after I met with Sarah. His reply was immediate. From who? No idea, but the timing is no coincidence. David, she's running scared. I have a copy of this, he texted back. This is evidence. Do not delete it. Done. I sat in the silent car, looking at the door to my house. Someone had been inside, someone had tried to bypass my security, and now they were sending threats. First thing in the morning, I was calling the investigator, Julian Croft, the man Mark was supposed to see. Enough was enough. The next day, I found myself in front of a historic brownstone in Chicago's Gold Coast, the discreet brass plaque reading Croft Forensic Accounting. I took a deep breath and went inside. The receptionist, a poised woman with a warm smile, greeted me. Miss Hayes, Mr. Croft is expecting you. She guided me down a quiet wood-paneled hallway to a corner office overlooking the street. Julian Croft rose to meet me. He was in his early 50s, with silvering hair, a sharp tweed jacket, and a calm, perceptive gaze. He shook my hand. Miss Hayes, my condolences on the loss of your husband, Mark. I gave a small nod. He had an appointment with you. He did, Croft said, his voice grave. He told my assistant he had documented substantial fraud and needed to see me urgently. We scheduled him for October 12th. He died on the 10th. I know. I'm sorry he couldn't make that meeting, Croft said, indicating a leather chair. You mentioned on the phone that you found something. I found what he intended to bring you. I placed my tablet on his desk. I opened the encrypted drive, and the files filled the screen. Mark's final note to me appeared first. Croft read it with a neutral expression. Next were the audio recordings and financial statements, tracking transfers to offshore accounts, $220,000 to Gilded Art Imports, $105,000 to Lakeshore Curations. I explained the drive was set up with a failsafe. I received the password 30 days after Mark's death. Croft was precise, taking notes on a legal pad. His attention was absolute. After scanning the first set of documents, he looked up. Your husband was thorough. He recorded everything, including the laundering scheme. Croft pulled up a database on his own monitor. $515,000. Lakeshore Curations. The director is listed as Sarah Dubois. Your sister's name? My sister, yes. It's a shell company. No corporate history, no assets, just a registered name. The wire transfers were for design work she never did. Ethan gave her a chance to return the money. She said no. So she began the affair to keep him quiet. Vance pointed to the screen. These audio recordings are explosive. Can you confirm they are the originals? They are. It's his entire backup from his phone. Vance laced his fingers together. This is your situation. You hold compelling evidence. The bank statements prove the theft. The recordings prove his intention to expose her for fraud. But what? But Chloe will argue it was a consensual gift, that he was her lover, and this is a fabrication from a scornful pregnant widow. Without the invoices, it's her story against the words of a man who is no longer here to defend himself. A cold dread spread through me. Vance's tone was calm and methodical. For a lawsuit, you have a strong case. For a criminal conviction, we need more. The recordings mention faked purchase orders and emails. That's your silver bullet. Without them, she will claim Ethan was confused, that the funds were for undocumented services, Family financial battles are messy. You must have an irrefutable link. So without those specific files, I have nothing. You have an uphill battle. It's possible she could walk away. A thick silence settled in the office. Vance studied me. What is your relationship with your sister like now? I thought we were closer than anyone. I thought she was my best friend. This is going to be the most difficult thing you've ever done. Greed and betrayal are a toxic combination. Are you prepared? I envisioned Chloe's false concern, her hands on my growing belly at the memorial, all while she was sleeping with my husband and bleeding us dry. She didn't just steal from us, she tore our family apart. I'm prepared. Vance nodded slowly. We may not be able to link her actions to Ethan's aneurysm, but if those documents exist, we can prove wire fraud. That's a major felony. It carries prison time. How long? It could be up to 7 years. The number hung in the air. I showed Vance a text Chloe sent that morning. She messaged me this after I asked a simple question about a business expense. Vance read the thinly veiled warning, his face turning to stone. This is from her? I can't prove it, but the timing is undeniable. He returned my phone. Then our timeline just got shorter. She suspects you're onto her. She will begin to erase everything. What should I do now? Find the rest of those documents. Ethan said everything was on that drive. Maybe there's a hidden partition with another password, a hint that only you would understand. I considered it. The moment I find it, you'll be my first call. We'll move on her then. Good, Vance said, his gaze intense. And one last thing. Cease all communication with her. Don't give her any indication that you know a thing. The element of surprise is your greatest weapon. I get it. He rose from his chair and extended his hand. The framework of the case is solid, but we lack the final element to proceed, he said, his handshake firm. Thank you, Mr. Davies. Please call me Robert, and Evelyn, your husband, did the difficult work. He built this entire case against her. We are merely seeing it to its conclusion. I sat in my car, staring at my tablet. Robert's words echoed in my mind. A detail only you would recognize. There was only one plan Julian and I truly shared, the name for the art project for our baby's room. First Light. That evening, I organized everything from Julian's home study. If his message said the vault held it all, the key had to be here. I reviewed the financial papers I'd already seen and the access keys. I took the rosewood box where he kept his treasured items and emptied it. Nothing. I examined the interior. Fine wood, a velvet lining. I ran my fingers along the bottom and felt it. A slight bump in the fabric, one corner not perfectly smooth. I slipped a fingernail beneath the velvet, pulling it back. Taped to the wood was a folded piece of paper. On it, in Julian's handwriting, was a single phrase. First Light Project Key. My heart pounded. A secondary layer of protection. He must have maintained a physical key, totally separate from his digital life. Why hadn't he mentioned it? Then it hit me. It was a safeguard. If Catherine somehow gained access to their network, he needed a key that was completely offline. Something she would never discover. A physical key made perfect sense. I called my sister Sarah right away. I have it. A written key. What? For what? Hidden in his desk box. The project name must be First Light. I'm coming over. We'll handle this together. But it's late. What if it's... It's a password, Ev, not a trap. Get the laptop ready. I'm bringing tea. 20 minutes later, Sarah was there, looking anxious but resolute. She gave me a warm mug. You seem like you're running on fumes. I am. I get it. Let's see what that man was hiding. We were at my kitchen counter with the lights of San Francisco glittering below. The view was a sharp contrast to the darkness on the laptop screen. I started the encrypted access. A prompt appeared for the project key. I typed, First Light Project Key. The secure folder opened. It held digital documents, invoices Catherine had falsified, fabricated emails between Julian and investors, and a detailed ledger tracking every cent she had siphoned. It was all laid out. Her anonymity was gone. This was a blueprint of her deceit. I navigated the files, a chill running through me. Sarah touched my shoulder. Oh, Ev, I'm so sorry. The deception stretched back 2 entire years? 2 years of systematic fraud. I took a shaky breath. When had he gathered all this? I checked the file data. Last updated May 10th, the day before the accident. Julian knew. He was preparing for this very confrontation. He knew, I murmured. He knew what she was doing. The last item in the folder was a draft message addressed to Robert Davies. All the proof is here, it said. I am ready to move forward. The evidence was undeniable. I accessed the subfolder 9317 and the contents displayed. The directory was clean with clearly labeled files. The only sounds were the distant city hum and a single car on the street below. We focused on the main screen. Folder E, document 186. Sarah and I stared at the password prompt, a simple digital lock. The password from the note worked flawlessly. My hands shook as I hit enter. Sarah put a hand on my arm. We can handle whatever this reveals, Evelyn, together. I simply nodded, unable to speak. I pressed the key. The folder unlocked. I double clicked, and the files appeared. The sound echoing in the quiet room. A little more speed would be nice. The file list populated. The folder was small, 5 documents by 10 pages each, and mostly text. 4 main files were stacked at the top. They were named and dated in Julian's precise, familiar style. File 1 was labeled Vance AI False Contracts. File 2, Forensic Network Traces. File 3, Financial Audit Trail. File 4, Evelyn, View This First. Sarah let out a quiet sigh next to me. My goodness, he documented everything. File 4 is marked for me, so we'll start there. We opened the document on the screen. It felt oddly personal. I needed to see Julian's direct message to me. I had to understand his instructions. I double-clicked the file, my heart pounding before we moved on. We sat in the dim light of the study as a soft San Francisco fog began to roll in, misting the windows. I focused on the screen. I opened file 4. The document loaded quickly. Inside were 3 sections, a link to Julian's private digital journal, its icon familiar. I recognized it immediately. It was my gift to him for our anniversary. A second link was to a secure cloud drive labeled in his style. Archive, same key, and a subfolder marked Forgeries Evelyn's Accounts. Sarah pointed to the journal link. That's his private log. He wanted you to read his thoughts before you saw the rest. I clicked it, my hands unsteady. Julian's words filled the screen. It was dated January 10th, 2020. The entry read, Something felt off today. A payment authorization for Azure Consulting Group hit my desk for $9,500. When I asked Ava about it, her answer was a cloud of corporate jargon. I'm noting it down to circle back. January of 2020. Ethan suspected something was wrong almost 2 full years before he died. I locked eyes with Sophia, my breath catching in my throat. He was on to her from the start. We stood in the quiet of his study, the city lights a distant blur, as I read from his private log. January 10th, 2020. Noticed a strange invoice from Azure Consulting. $9,500 for vendor logistics management. I asked Ava for the rundown. She talked about optimizing supply chains and leveraging new partnerships. It almost sounded legitimate, but I don't remember her being involved in those project acquisitions. I'm going to keep an eye on it. April 5th, 2020. 2 more payments have gone through. The total is now over $36,000 since the new year. I pushed Ava for a detailed report. Which vendors, which projects, the exact cost savings. She became defensive, said I was undermining her authority. She promised a full breakdown that never materialized. August 22nd, 2020. I looked up Azure Consulting Group in the California Business Registry. It was formed in November of 2018. The registered agent is Ava Pierce. There are no other listed principals. The address is a post office box in Oakland. This company isn't real. She's funneling money out of our firm. I had to stop reading. Sophia's voice was a low murmur. August 2020. That's when he knew for sure. More than a year before the crash, my hand trembled as I turned the heavy page. November 2020. I reviewed the last 3 years of our financials. $152,000 paid to Azure Consulting since early 2019. I made quiet calls to two of the suppliers Ava claimed to be managing. Neither had ever heard of her or her firm. The services were never performed. This is theft. February 2021. The setup. Ava came into my office looking distraught. She had a stack of printed emails, supposedly from Olivia's account, authorizing wire transfers to an unknown account. She claimed she'd noticed the anomalies and investigated. She said she couldn't believe it, but the evidence was clear. I looked at the printouts. It was Olivia's name, her email signature. But I know my wife. This isn't her. The moment Ava left, I pulled the raw server data. The emails were sent from IP address 172.16.10.112. That IP is assigned to Ava's company laptop. I know because I configured it myself. Olivia's office IP is completely different. Ava forged the messages. She was trying to frame Olivia for the crime she was committing. She isn't just stealing from us, she's trying to ruin my pregnant wife to cover her tracks. A wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't continue. My hands were shaking too hard to hold the book. Sophia's voice was like ice. She tried to make him believe you were the criminal. My own words were barely audible. And Ethan never said a word to me. He just kept digging on his own. I wiped my eyes and forced myself to read on. May 2021. I found 4 supplier agreements from the last 18 months. Olivia's signature is on all of them, giving approval. But Olivia never signed them. I asked her about those suppliers over dinner, just casually. She had no idea who they were. I pulled up the digital signatures. They're high quality scans, just copied and pasted onto the documents. Ava forged Olivia's signature. August 3rd, 2021. I met with Ava today at a quiet cafe, far from the office. I laid out all the evidence. She completely broke down, admitted she had a massive gambling debt, and showed me statements. Over $200,000 in the hole. She claimed it was a moment of panic, begged me not to tell Olivia, saying the truth would destroy our family. I gave her an out. 6 months. Pay back every cent by February 2022. Get help. If she did, I wouldn't involve the police. Why did I do it? Because Olivia adores her sister, and I couldn't stand the thought of breaking her heart. I silently read the next words, my chest tightened. August 10th, 2021. I still haven't told Olivia. She's been so full of life, so excited about the baby. Monarch Interiors just landed the Fairmont contract. She's finally happy again, truly happy, for the first time since we lost Leo. How can I tell her that her own sister has been systematically robbing her and tried to frame her? How can I shatter that happiness? If Ava pays it back, Olivia never has to find out. She can have her sister and her peace. I know it's a coward's way out, but I can't break her heart again. Not after losing Leo. I squeezed my eyes shut, hot tears escaping. Sophia took my hand, her grip grounding me. He was trying to shield you, she said quietly. He took on this burden so I could be happy, because he didn't want to cause me more pain. I blinked through the moisture and read the next entry. October 9th, 2021. Olivia asked me last night if everything was all right. She said I seemed a million miles away. I made up an excuse about work. But she is absolutely radiant. She's finalizing the plans for the nursery, talking about expanding the team. If I tell her, all this joy vanishes. She will be destroyed. I can hold this for a few more months. January 20th, 2022. Ava hasn't paid back anything, only more excuses. She's still manipulating the books. I was an idiot to trust her. I have a meeting with Warren, our lawyer, on March 3rd. I'm telling Olivia on the last day of February. I'm finished protecting Ava. February 28th, 2022. The final entry. The handwriting was shaky. Seeing the lawyer at 9 in the morning, this nightmare ends tomorrow. Olivia, if you are reading this, I am so sorry. Sorry I kept this from you. The password is Leo 2015. Our son we lost. I never stop thinking of him. It is all on the drive. Use it. Get justice for us. I love you. Ian. I closed the heavy leather-bound book. We were in my home office now. I must have walked from his study with Sophia right behind me. I don't remember moving, Sophia said softly. Leo 2015, that's the key, our son. We lost him at 20 weeks in 2015. We named him, but only told our parents, and they're both gone. I pulled the small black hard drive from the safe. My hands were suddenly firm, filled with a cold purpose. Let's see what he left us. I sat at my desk and connected the drive to my laptop. A password prompt appeared on the screen. I typed deliberately LEO2015. I held my breath and pressed the Enter key. The login window vanished. A single folder appeared. Evidence underscore A underscore Pierce underscore fraud. It contained 192 files, perfectly sorted. 01 underscore invoices underscore Azure. 02 underscore fabricated underscore emails. 03 underscore financial underscore audits. 04 underscore signature underscore forgeries, and more. Each folder had a summary document written in Ethan's precise, clear prose. He was a designer, exacting in every detail, even when building a case against my sister. Sophie exhaled slowly. He built an entire prosecution for you. I clicked on the first folder. 38 PDF files appeared. I chose one at random. Invoice underscore Azure underscore January underscore 2020.pdf. It looked completely professional with a minimalist logo Ava likely designed herself. Invoice number ACG2020-001. Bill to Monarch Interiors. For services rendered, vendor procurement logistics. Amount $9,500. Signed, Ava Pierce. I right-clicked the file and opened the properties. The metadata was the final lazy betrayal. Author, Ava Pierce. Device name, Ava's MacBook Pro. Date created January 9th, 2020. The payment dates were always one day after the invoice creation dates. Sophia was looking over my shoulder. She used her own personal laptop for this. She didn't even attempt to cover her digital tracks. She never imagined anyone would look this closely. I found Ethan's audit file, quote, payment underscore forensics underscore analysis dot xlsx quote, comma, and clicked it open. An immaculate spreadsheet loaded onto the screen. Every single payment was logged with the file's metadata, the creation date, the author, the device name, and the amount. All 38 invoices had an identical digital origin, created by the same person on the same computer, usually just hours before they were submitted for payment. I navigated to the communications folder. Inside were 74 emails arranged by quarter. They were messages between Ava and her fake company. I opened a recent one from September 2021 from Azure Consulting Group. The text read, as per our discussion, October's logistical services are concluded. We have audited 3 new textile suppliers, negotiated with 2 furniture artisans, and finalized shipping contracts. The invoice is attached. The balance due is $14,200. It looked completely normal, businesslike, specific, with an invoice attached. But Ethan's analysis subfolder held a single report. Quote, network underscore traffic underscore forensics dot pgpdf. My hands shook as I opened it. The document was filled with technical reports, IP tables, and server information. The conclusion was undeniable. Every single email from the vendor originated from IP address 192.168.1.105. The same address for all 74 messages. That was the public IP for the coffee shop next to our studio, where, Ethan noted, Ava started every single workday. The supplier's incorporation date matched the first invoice exactly. Isabella was paying a company that didn't exist a day prior. Chloe shook her head. It was amateur. A single IP address for the whole scheme. She bet everything that no one would ever look this closely. I clicked through the encrypted files, my heart hammering against my ribs. The third file was the money trail, showing transfers from the firm's main account to Viridian Imports, then to an offshore account in Isabella's name, ending in 5821. Every payment was wired within 2 days of an invoice. Liam's typed notes were embedded in the file. He wrote, Standard shell game, layered to hide the source. The fourth file, forgeries, held 14 documents. On the left was my real signature from our 2018 business loan. On the right were fakes on project approvals from 2021. The differences were subtle, a slight waver in a curve, an uneven pressure. A forensic analysis was attached from a specialist in Boston who concluded with 87% certainty the signatures were fraudulent. The analysis pointed to digital duplication and tracing. I stared at my own name, forged on the document. It was a deep personal violation. She had used my identity to cover her crimes. The fifth file held personal records. Liam's notes explained he had found a folder on the shared server Isabella must have saved by mistake. He copied everything. It contained statements from luxury retailers and travel agencies. Month after month revealed a lifestyle far beyond her salary. The total over 3 years was a breathtaking $350,000. The motive was greed, plain and simple. File 6 contained the technical forensics, PDF metadata, and server records. Every fake invoice PDF had been created on Isabella's personal laptop. She had paid for the shell company's web hosting with her own credit card in 2020. All emails to that fake supplier were routed to her private address. The last file, number 7, was titled Testimony. It was a single audio file, ls_final _entry _jan_15 _2024.wav. My hand trembled over the mouse. Julian asked quietly, "Do you want a moment?" "No," I whispered. "Stay with me." I played the file. Liam's voice filled the office. I could picture him in his study at home. The recording was dated January 15th, 2024, just 1 week before the crash. I pressed play. Liam's calm, familiar voice broke the silence. "My name is Liam Sterling. Today is January 15th. I am making this recording as a failsafe. Isabella Rossi has embezzled over $350,000 from our design firm through a shell corporation. I have definitive proof stored on this server. She also attempted to frame my wife, Chloe, by forging her signature on 14 purchase orders to authorize the payments. The digital analysis confirms the forgeries originated on Isabella's machine." I confronted her back in October, she confessed, claiming she had crippling debt. I gave her 3 months to begin repayment. She hasn't returned a dime. She's forged more documents since. I didn't involve the police because Chloe sees her as family. I wanted to handle it quietly to give her a chance to fix it. I see now that was a mistake. She deserves no such loyalty. I have a meeting with our attorney Julian Vance on January 23rd. If something happens to me, Chloe, if you are hearing this, use this and this. The audio ended. The only noise was the distant sound of city traffic. My phone vibrated on the desk. A call from a private number. "I know you were with Julian. We should talk. Don't do anything rash. Isabella." Julian saw the message pop up on my screen. "She's getting nervous," he said. I took a screenshot of it. "More for the file." "What's your next move?" he asked. "I'm going home to wait for her." The doorbell rang at 4:15 that Tuesday. My security camera showed Isabella on the porch holding a tea and a coffee. Her black Porsche was parked at the curb. She had on a silk blouse and designer sunglasses pushed back on her head. The expensive tote bag she always carried was on her arm. The coffee was likely her large almond milk latte. The tea was probably chamomile, my go-to since the pregnancy. She smiled directly into the camera, holding up the drinks as a peace offering, then rang the bell a second time. I saved the 30-second clip, took a calming breath, and unlocked the door. "Chloe," her voice was syrupy sweet. "I hope this isn't a bad time. I was in the neighborhood and had to see how you were. You've been so quiet since we last talked. I started to worry." She swept past me, placing the drinks on the entryway table before pulling me into a hug that smelled of expensive perfume. I returned the hug, keeping my face impassive as I closed the door behind her. "I'm fine," I said, taking the tea she offered. "Just overwhelmed. You know how it is, trying to get organized before the baby arrives." "I can only imagine." She followed me into the great room and settled onto the sofa. That's partly why I came. I've been thinking about what a nightmare this year has been. Losing Liam, running the studio, trying to sort out all his unfinished business. I sat in the armchair across from her and took a sip of my tea. It was tepid. Chloe, can I be completely honest? She leaned forward, her expression a mask of deep concern. I'm worried. I feel like you're holding something in. And I think Liam left things in a more tangled state than you realize. What are you talking about? She paused, looking into her cup as if gathering her thoughts. This is hard to say, but you need to hear it. Liam wasn't happy at the end. Not with work, he lived for that, but with his life. With things at home. A cold knot formed in my stomach, but I kept my expression neutral. Where is this coming from, Isabella? He confided in me. We were partners for so long, you know. He trusted me. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. He said he felt smothered. He was considering asking for some space, maybe even a trial separation. I slowly pulled my hand back and took another sip of tea to hide my fury. Liam never mentioned anything like that to me. He wouldn't, she said, her voice full of false sympathy. He didn't want to upset you. But Chloe, he was burning out. He was at the studio all hours. I found him there one night a few weeks before he died, looking exhausted. He told me he was working on a new direction, a plan to restructure the entire firm, maybe even change the partnership. Change the partnership? I asked, letting my voice crack slightly. What does that mean? He insisted it was for the best, to protect the firm's future. He said there were complications he had to handle privately. He wanted me to stay quiet until he had a plan. She watched my face, searching for any sign that I believed her lies. I gave her nothing. So why tell me now? I asked calmly. Because I don't want you to be hurt. I'm not sure what Liam was planning, but he kept detailed records. If you find any of his private journals or supplier files, I need you to show them to me before you go to anyone else. What he wrote might be confusing taken out of context. There it was, the real reason for her visit. I haven't seen anything, I lied without blinking. I went through his home office months ago, just blueprints, old client files, nothing unusual. Why would you think there's something to find? Her smile tightened for a fraction of a second. I just know how meticulous Liam was. So if you happen upon any old financial reports, supplier agreements, things like that, just call me first, that's all. Why would supplier agreements be a problem? She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you know Liam. He was paranoid about overspending. He would triple check every invoice for materials against our project budgets. It was exhausting. He made me re-verify things I'd already approved. It was just how he was. I nodded, pretending to understand. I see. He did mention being worried about some costs. Something about those new Italian marble shipments. Her hand froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. Marble shipments? Yes, I said, keeping my voice casual. He mentioned some payments, maybe around $350,000 in the last couple of years. That seemed off. He was going to have the accountant pull the full records, but then he was gone. The color drained from Isabella's face. She slowly lowered her cup. I don't recall that. Are you sure? Positive, I said, holding her gaze. Does any of that ring a bell? No. She stood up abruptly, smoothing her blouse. No, it was probably just Liam overanalyzing, like always. I have to go. I have a client dinner at 7. I walked her to the foyer. She paused at the door and gave me a quick, rigid hug. Chloe, please, she whispered urgently. For Liam's memory, for the business you built together, don't go through his old files alone. You don't know what you'll find. It could be ugly. I'm just trying to protect you. From what? She pulled back, a flicker of panic in her eyes before her practiced smile returned. From more pain. She turned, walked to her Porsche, and sped away. I bolted the door, my heart racing. I pulled out my phone and called Julian Vance. He answered on the first ring. Julian, I have everything, I said quietly. The digital ledger, the audio files, the fake purchase orders. It's all here. And Isabella just left my house. She's scared. We need to act now. There was a brief silence. Can you be in my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow? Bring the master login, the journal, everything. We'll go to the DA by the end of the week. I'll be there. Right. And Amelia have no further contact with Simone. Is that clear? Crystal. I hang up and archive the security logs from her visit. Tomorrow at 9, I'm giving Liam Davies evidence worth over $500,000, and my husband's business partner is going to lose her entire world. The intercom buzzes at 10:30 on Monday morning, just hours before my appointment with Sterling. On the screen, a bike courier holds a rigid cardboard envelope that requires a signature. I let him up, sign for it on his phone, and take the package. The return label is for a Chicago law firm I've never heard of. I bolt the door, snap a few pictures of the sealed mailer, then slice it open. Inside are 3 sheets of heavy, cream-colored paper. A law firm's insignia is embossed in gold leaf at the top. I brace myself against the kitchen island and start reading. The header is bolded. Demand for immediate cessation and return of proprietary assets. My name and address are listed, followed by intimidating paragraphs of legalese. This firm is representing Miss Simone Petit in matters concerning InnovateX solutions. We are informed that you are in possession of proprietary company information, including investor prospectuses and source code, misappropriated from the firm. These assets belong solely to the company, as stipulated in the founding charter of June 2016. We hereby demand the return of all financial projections from 2018 to the present, all developer contracts, and any and all digital correspondence with company vendors. Non-compliance within 14 days will result in immediate civil litigation for intellectual property theft, with damages sought exceeding $750,000. Any disclosure of internal company matters to third parties will be treated as corporate defamation. Please confirm receipt and coordinate the return of said materials. The signature was an illegible scrawl above a state bar registration number. The notice was dated last Friday, 2 days before Simone showed up at my home with pastries and a story full of lies. It clicked into place. She hired a lawyer, sent this threat, and when she got no response, she came herself to emotionally manipulate me. She wants to frame me as the hysterical, grieving wife trying to sabotage the business. She's not wasting any time. I photograph every page and forward them to Sterling with a quick note. Just got this from Simone's legal team. Bringing it with me. His reply was immediate. Excellent, do not respond. See you at 1. At 1 p.m., I walk into his high-rise office with my arsenal, the tablet logged into the shared cloud drive, Ethan's personal ledger, a folder thick with bank statements, and the lawyer's threatening letter inside a document protector. Sterling reads the demand letter first, a slight smirk on his face. When he finishes, he sets it down. This is pure panic. I love it. They're threatening to sue you for possessing your own husband's files. It's laughable. He motions toward the letter. As his wife and the executor of his estate, you have a legal claim to all his records, business or otherwise. More importantly, evidence of criminal activity is not a protected company asset. You can't use corporate privilege to hide a felony. You can't defame someone by exposing the facts. This letter is just a scare tactic. He's gambling that you'll be too intimidated to proceed. What's our plan? We do nothing. Let them sweat. He slides a secure tablet over and I access the drive. Let's examine what your husband uncovered. For the next hour, Sterling dissected the files, reviewed the transaction logs, and compared the fraudulent invoices against the hidden spreadsheet Ethan kept. He flags one entry, scribbling a note on a legal pad. Your husband was meticulous. He anticipated she would try to wipe the servers clean. She would have, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Sterling closes the file. This is an airtight case. We're looking at a slate of felonies: grand larceny, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud for forging Ethan's name on investment paperwork, and tax evasion through a shell entity. The charges landed on me, each one heavy and real. How much prison time could she get? He met my gaze. With this level of proof, realistically, a decade or more. With restitution, she might get probation. That's the absolute best case. But if a jury convicts her on all counts, she's facing 5 to 12 years. Sophia's whole future just erased. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but there's only this deep, heavy exhaustion. She was my sister long before she was a fraudster. Mr. Harrison must read the turmoil on my face. He closes his laptop, steeples his fingers, and meets my gaze. Amelia, there's more. He opens a minimalist leather portfolio and pushes a document across the glass table. It's a title from the Napa County Recorder's Office. Sophia co-owns her condo in Pacific Heights with David. That's standard community property. But this is something else entirely. He taps the deed. A shell company, SSV Innovations, was incorporated on June 10th, 2024. June, barely 3 weeks after Ethan passed away. SV Innovations is the owner of a vineyard estate in wine country. Parcel 7, purchased on August 1st for $4.1 million, paid via a series of wire transfers. He lets that information settle in the quiet room. Over $4 million wired to an anonymous company while you were arranging your husband's memorial service. I can't seem to catch my breath. She bought a secret vineyard, precisely. And that is not the most damning part. She did it with our company's capital, a sprawling estate purchased with funds siphoned from your own venture fund. He displays drone footage on his screen. An incredible property with panoramic views of the entire valley. A private winery. Her signature is the only one on the deed, naming herself the sole director of the corporation. She handed us a perfect digital trail of her crime. Can we recover it? Absolutely. California law regarding asset recovery in cases of wire fraud is quite robust. We'll make it part of the terms. The 4.1 million she funneled, plus the forfeiture of her shares, and the immediate transfer of the vineyard to you. She will be left with absolutely nothing. The firm, the capital, and that Napa estate she acquired with my husband's legacy, it all comes back to you. I stared at the digital files, a luxury estate with vintage wine sales funding the new life she built after he was gone. When do we send the terms? I asked my attorney. First thing in the morning, he replied. We'll send the offer encrypted to both Sophia and her fiancé Julian. It will include a draft of a federal indictment for the US. Attorney detailing the wire fraud, but we won't file it yet. If she accepts our conditions within 48 hours, it disappears. If she doesn't, the prosecutor's office takes over. And if she accepts, she dissolves her company, signs over the property, repays every dollar, and signs a permanent no-contact agreement. In exchange, the criminal charges are dropped. She has no choice. It would be insane not to accept. Her only alternative is federal prison. I close my eyes, imagining Sophia seeing that email, feeling her whole fabricated life imploding. I want to feel triumphant, but it's just a profound exhaustion. Do it, I whisper. Mr. Harrison nods, shutting the portfolio. They'll be sent tomorrow. She will have until the end of the week to respond. I gather my things, the tablet, Ethan's private notes, the hard drive with his research, and walk out into the cool San Francisco fog. My phone vibrates as I approach my car. An unknown Bay Area number appears on the screen. I almost decline it, but an impulse makes me answer. Mrs. Alistair? It's a man's voice, strained with panic. This is David Croft, Sophia's husband. I need to talk to you about Soph, about what she's been doing. I think I'm a victim too. Thursday morning, December 21st. I'm at my kitchen island with my phone and a cup of chamomile tea when I return David Croft's call. He answers on the first ring. David, you said you were a victim. What has Sophia done? His voice is tight. A few weeks ago, I found a folder hidden on our shared drive. An application for a crypto wallet. A $500,000 line of credit set up under my name. My digital signature was on it. But you never authorized it. I never saw it in my life. I compared the signature file to my passport, our mortgage documents. It was an incredibly good clone. Unbelievably good, but it wasn't my authentication. The pressure sensitivity on the D, the curve of the C. She cloned my credentials. I shut my eyes. David, I am so incredibly sorry. I've already moved out. Then your attorney's office called about a vineyard in Napa. I was completely blindsided. She never said a word about it. She masked it with a shell company. California is a community property state. Half of that is legally yours. That's my point. But I didn't know it existed until a paralegal from Mr. Harrison's firm left a message about an impending asset forfeiture. He exhales a long, unsteady breath. Mrs. Alistair, Amelia, I'm calling to tell you I will be your star witness. In a courtroom, in a deposition, whatever you require. She forged my identity. She deceived me for our entire marriage, and I was too foolish to see it. Thank you, David. I should have seen the red flags. The endless investor meetings, the luxury brand gifts from anonymous backers. The way she'd become so defensive if I asked about our money. I just. I chose to trust her. I'm done with that now. I patch Mr. Harrison into the conversation. His tone is calm, professional. Mr. Croft, are you able to come to my office this afternoon? Please bring the digital records you mentioned and any other financial documents you deem relevant. Yes, 2:30. Perfect. We will see you then. At 2:30, David Croft enters the boardroom carrying a sleek laptop bag, looking completely broken. He's in his early 40s, well dressed but rumpled, in a blazer that's seen better days. A tech executive, perhaps, or a consultant, someone accustomed to a life of precision. He opens his laptop and brings the documents up for Mr. Harrison. A crypto account application from last September with David's forged e-signature on the final page. Mr. Harrison examines it, then compares it to a verified one David provided. He gives a grave nod. It's the identical technique she used on Ethan's files. She copied a legitimate signature file, then layered it onto the PDF. The compression artifacts are nearly invisible. A crypto exchange wouldn't notice, but a digital forensics expert would see it immediately. She needed the credit line, $500,000. She likely claimed it was seed capital for a fake startup. The statements were routed to a ghost email address you never knew about, and she used it to help fund the vineyard purchase. David's hands tighten into fists. If this goes to trial, will I have to take the stand? Yes, but for now, would you be available for a mediation meeting? Perhaps next week. I'll be there. She has to face what she's done. To you, to me, to Ethan. After David is gone, Mr. Harrison turns to me. This completely demolishes her entire argument. It proves this was premeditated. Forgery wasn't a single mistake. It's her playbook. I can only nod, feeling empty. My own sister didn't just defraud our company. She methodically destroyed everyone who trusted her. That evening, at 8:30, my intercom buzzes. The security feed shows my mother, Eleanor, at the gate, wearing the same dark scarf from Ethan's memorial 11 months ago. Her hands are trembling as she presses the button again. I let her in. Mom, I need to speak with you. We end up at the kitchen island, the silent stage for all our family dramas. I get her a glass of water that she doesn't drink. She doesn't take off her scarf. Sophia called me. She was frantic. She said you've hired some ruthless attorney, that you're making wild accusations, that you're trying to destroy her. Did she mention what she actually did? She claimed it was a misunderstanding about the company, that Ethan was careless with records, that her venture fees were all legitimate. That's her story. Would you like to hear what really happened? Eleanor just stares, her mouth set in a hard line. I take a slow breath. She committed $4.1 million in wire fraud over 2 years. Ethan had meticulous records, fabricated investor decks, falsified communications, transfers to a shell entity. She created a phantom advisory firm, sent it dummy invoices, and funneled our capital to an offshore account. Then she bought a vineyard with it. My mother absorbs this slowly. I continue. But the money is not the worst of it. She cloned Ethan's digital signature on over 10 documents. She created a false data trail to show him authorizing transfers to a non existent vendor. If Ethan hadn't saved every file, I would be the primary suspect right now. She was positioning me to be the scapegoat. No, Sophia would never. She already did. Ethan found it. He offered her a quiet way to make it right. She didn't repay a single cent. Instead, she forged more documents and bought a Napa estate with the money she stole. My mother's composure finally cracks. I loaned her money. For years, over $200,000. She would call me, distraught about a failed startup, about needing help with her debts. I thought I was supporting her. You were financing her fraud. I know. A single tear carves a line down her cheek. She was always my youngest, the one who always needed a little push. You were always so independent, so driven. Sophia just seemed to need me more. She's a pathological liar, Mom, and a felon, and she was willing to sacrifice me to save herself. Eleanor shuts her eyes. My child is a monster, and I enabled her. You didn't make her forge anyone's signature. A few months ago, Eleanor says, her voice a near whisper, back in September, Sophia came by. Her fiance wasn't there. She seemed so agitated. She said Ethan was acting paranoid, keeping encrypted files. She hinted that she was worried he was siphoning company money from you. She was trying to frame Ethan as the thief. Not directly, but she was projecting. She told me should Amelia raise any flags about Liam's spending, just send her to me. I'll handle it. We can't have her getting stressed. She was constructing her defense in advance. Any red flag I found, she would explain away as a simple clerical error. That's why I called you. I was trying to check on his portfolio. I thought I was being a responsible parent, but I was just enabling her. A dense silence settled in the room. Finally, my mother's voice, now sharp and clear, broke through. Tell me what you need from me. The complete truth. A sworn statement about the 50,000 you lent her, and her exact words that summer. If this goes to court, you'll have to testify against Simone. She's my sister's child, and I am your child. Eleanor stared at her hands for a long moment. When she met my eyes, her expression was unwavering. She stood by while he betrayed you. She gaslighted you into thinking you were losing your mind. That isn't a mistake, it's calculated cruelty. Darling, for years I've made excuses for that girl. Bad judgment. A difficult childhood, money problems, so I wrote you more checks. I never forced her to face a single consequence, but helping to destroy your family is unforgivable. She took my hand. I'll give you a statement. I'll show up in court. I will do whatever is needed. This might ruin your relationship with Simone for good. She ruined that herself when she targeted my daughter. I am choosing my family. I am choosing you. We held each other and cried. Not long after Eleanor left, my phone rang, displaying the name Sterling Hayes. I put it on speaker. Mrs. Davies, my client, is available to meet this Friday at 10 a.m. Mr. Sterling's office. They are open to discussing a resolution. I called my lawyer immediately. He wants to talk settlement. Perfect. This is exactly the scenario we planned for. What if it's another trap? Let him try. We have everything. The private investigator's dossier, the offshore transfer logs, the condo surveillance stills, the lease agreement, Liam's own written confession, and now your mother's testimony. His back is against the wall with nothing left but his own arrogance. On Friday morning, we will end this. Thursday, December 23rd, the day prior, Sterling's conference room felt like a war room. Sarah, Mr. Sterling, and I were rehearsing for the meeting like a prosecution team preparing for trial, leaving no detail to chance. The mahogany table was covered in neatly organized documents. Sterling stood at the head, sorting evidence into 4 thick binders labeled with a Sharpie. Binder 1, offshore transfers, contained 35 falsified invoices from a ghost corporation, with forensic data linking them to Simone's laptop, and 36 months of bank statements detailing transfers of over $500,000. Binder 2, digital evidence, held 74 incriminating emails sent from Simone's anonymous IP address, plus service records for the fake accounts she created. Binder 3, document forgery, presented 12 side-by-side comparisons of loan applications, including an expert analysis confirming digital signature manipulation. Binder 4, supplemental evidence, 5-star hotel folios showing over $200,000 in expenses, photocopies from Liam's personal calendar, and surveillance photos of the secret downtown condo. Sterling's laptop was open. The video file PI underscore Davies underscore condo underscore November underscore 2025.mp4 queued up. 3 minutes and 40 seconds of my husband and Simone. Tomorrow my approach will be clinical, Sterling said, tapping the binders. We'll begin with the financial fraud, move to the affair, and conclude with the video. Sterling Hayes will try to negotiate immediately, but I will insist on presenting the full scope of our evidence. Once he understands the situation is hopeless, he'll push his client to settle. What if Liam denies everything? I asked. He'll try to, but Hayes is a realist. He'll recognize this is a losing fight and advise Liam to settle to avoid public humiliation. Sarah then voiced the question I was afraid to ask. What is the absolute worst case scenario? Sterling replied instantly. He rejects our offer. We file divorce papers on Monday. The story gets leaked to the financial press. He faces a career ending scandal, and we take him to court for his assets anyway. He loses it all. Best case, he accepts our terms tomorrow, wires a $5 million settlement plus our legal fees within 90 days, signs over the properties, and agrees to an ironclad non disclosure agreement. We'll pause the public filing. If he ever violates the NDA, we leak everything. Sterling opened a manila folder and slid a paper across to me. Your aunt was here this morning. She left this. I took the envelope, 3 pages on law firm stationery with a notary seal pressed into the paper. My hands trembled as I read. I, Margaret Albright, do solemnly swear that between May 2023 and January 2024, I loaned my dear friend's daughter, Mia Vargas, over $30,000 for a supposed artist residency. I now believe these funds were used to conceal an affair and her lavish lifestyle. In December, Mia told me Julian was under immense pressure at his architectural firm. She suggested that if I notice him acting strange, I should call her first so as not to worry Elena. It's now clear this was a scheme to stop me from uncovering her relationship with my friend's husband. I am deeply ashamed for enabling her, and I will testify to these facts. The words swam before my eyes. She actually signed it. It's incredibly damning, Harrison said quietly. It shows Mia manipulated a woman who was like a second mother to her. A court would despise that. The office phone buzzed. The receptionist's voice filled the room. Mr. Harrison, David from the gallery is on line 2 about tomorrow. Harrison pressed the speaker. Mr. Russo, what can you tell me? Can I attend the meeting tomorrow? David's voice was strained. Harrison glanced at me. I nodded slowly. Your testimony is strong, but Miss Reed will fight to keep you out. Are you prepared for that? Why would she? She'll argue you aren't party to the divorce, that this is a private family matter, and your presence is purely inflammatory. And how do you respond? That you're a witness to Mia's pattern of manipulation using the exact same tactics. It establishes her character and her methods. It's absolutely relevant, which is why Reed will try to block it. Will she win? Not a chance. Reed will object for the record, but your information is admissible. The question is whether Julian and Mia can handle you being there. Good. I want them to squirm. They should understand the wreckage they've created. Harrison allowed himself a small, grim smile. Be here at 9:45. Bring the loan agreements she had you sign. I'll bring you in after we show the photos, when things are at their most volatile. I'll be there. After the call, he looked at us. Tomorrow's game plan, 10 a.m., Julian, Mia, and Reed arrive. Reed will start with a low offer. I'll reject it. We'll go through the financial records, item by item, then the cloud drive images, and finally, bring in David as our knockout punch. We let them talk privately. Then they meet our demands, or we walk away. But what if he's not thinking clearly, I asked. Then his lawyer will be. Reed's job is to contain the fallout. When she sees this evidence, she will advise her client to take the deal. Sophie looked at me. What's our role tomorrow? Harrison answered, You're here for moral support and to witness the signing. Elena will say very little. I'll handle the negotiations. She should only speak when I cue her, or to have the last word. What would I possibly say? Whatever you need to. They tried to shatter you. You've more than earned the right to have the final say. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow would change everything. I went into Julian's study where I'd first found the hidden cloud drive weeks ago. His desk was pristine. I saw the small audio recorder he used for site notes. The last recording was labeled for Elena. He must have known this was coming. He left me a path to follow. I'm finishing this, I whispered to the empty room. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. You are so ready for this. Julian is with you in spirit. Then, from Margaret, I am so incredibly proud of you. No matter what happens tomorrow, I'm proud. Nothing from Mia. She was probably with Reed, rehearsing her performance of innocence. Friday arrived, 9:47 a.m. I stood outside Harrison's building. Sophie was right beside me. The sharp Chicago wind bit at my face. The polished sign read Harrison and Associates, Family Law. Sophie met my eyes. Ready? I thought of Julian. I thought of the years of deception, of a sister who betrayed my trust, and of the baby growing inside me. I remembered the secret photos and his final recorded message. Finish what I started. Yes, I said, let's finish this. We pushed through the glass doors. Right. We're at the very edge of the moment my entire world is about to detonate on Mia. Before we continue, just type the word finish below. A warning, the next part includes some creative liberties. If that's not your style, now is your chance to leave. Still with me? Fantastic. Let's end this. 10:02 a.m. Friday, November the 5th, our wedding anniversary, inside Harrison's conference room. I sat at his right with Sophie next to me. An empty seat remained on our side. Across from us, two chairs were vacant. The door opened. Miss Reed entered first, a woman in her late 40s, immaculate suit, looking like she was walking into a trap. Behind her was Mia. She saw me and stopped cold. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup a fragile mask over pure exhaustion. She wore a sharp blazer, trying to project power, but her hand shook as she set her purse on the table. Elena, Mia starts, her voice cracking. Can we just talk alone before my lawyer, Mr. Harrison, cuts her off? No, everything from this point is on the record. He gestures to the empty seats. Please. Her attorney, Miss Reed, opens a legal pad. Mia just stares at me, looking for the sister she threw away. Harrison straightens his tie. Before we begin, we have one other person joining us. Mia frowns. Who? A knock on the door and it opens. My husband Julian walks in. All the blood drains from Mia's face. Julian, what are you? He refuses to even look at her. He sits next to me, puts his phone on the table, and says nothing. You can't. This is a private. Miss Reed is on her feet. Objection. Mr. Harrison, this is a marital settlement discussion. Mr. Croft is not a party to this action. Harrison stays seated, perfectly calm. Mr. Croft is the primary victim of corporate fraud committed by your client, his project manager. Her actions establish a clear pattern of criminal deceit. Pattern evidence is for trial, not a negotiation, which is precisely where this is going. If we don't settle today, Mr. Croft is prepared to file separate charges for her forging his signature on multiple corporate expense reports. Her presence here establishes a pattern of defrauding her own family. Miss Reed leans over, whispering intensely to Mia. Did you sign his name? Mia just stares, her lips parted. Miss Reed sinks into her chair, all the fight gone out of her. Objection noted. Harrison nods. Shall we proceed? Miss Reed clears her throat, trying to regain control. Mr. Harrison, my client wants to resolve this, but we categorically deny these claims. The expense reports were legitimate project costs. Stop. Harrison's voice is ice. Before you lock into that story, let me show you what we have. Our discussion about terms will begin asterisk after asterisk. You see what my forensic accountant found. Mia leans forward. This is ridiculous. Elena, I'm your sister. I finally look at her. You're also the woman who was sleeping with my husband. Harrison opens a thick binder. Miss Vargas, I suggest you listen. He lays down the first statement. Corporate card charge, February 3rd, $35,000. He lays down another and another and another. 16 statements in total spread across the mahogany table, each signed by her, totaling over $200,000, funneled from his company's accounts. Miss Reed scans them, her face grim. Harrison presses on. All payable to shell corporations like Vargas Designs or Creative Edge Solutions. No employees, no offices, just P.O. boxes in Indiana. Mia's voice is barely a whisper. Those were for material sourcing. Harrison slides a folder across the table. Server logs from Croft Architecture. Your work computer was used to create every single one of these falsified invoices, usually moments after you searched for international travel restrictions. Miss Reed's jaw is clenched. Harrison turns on the projector. Here are the incorporation documents for Vargas Designs. Founder Mia Vargas. Registered agent Mia Vargas. Date filed February 1st. You created the fake company in the morning and built his firm for a fictional project that same afternoon. Real suppliers use encrypted payment systems. You just made it all up. Miss Reed whispers to her client, "Is any of this true?" I sometimes used my work laptop for personal things. Harrison is relentless. Let's look at your digital footprint. He projects an email chain. Here you are, as Creative Edge, emailing yourself at the firm to manufacture a paper trail. He pulls up domain registration data. You bought the Creative Edge domain name 2 days before. The IP address traces directly to your apartment in Lincoln Park. Your internet service provider has already confirmed it. A total of 89 emails. You conducted entire exchanges with yourself, posing as a wealth manager. Simone presses her fingertips to her temples. You fabricated entire accounts? That is textbook wire fraud, Mr. Sterling says, displaying bank records on the screen. And let's follow the money. Trust fund disbursements to Apex Global. Within 48 hours, the funds are moved again to an individual account in the Caymans, ending in 6620. Your account. He highlights one transfer after another. Instantaneous moves offshore. A classic embezzlement scheme. Simone closes her legal pad. The faint click sounds like a gunshot in the silent room. Mr. Sterling's voice drops. That handles the financial crimes. Now we'll address the personal treachery. He picks up a second binder, this one labeled Innovates Forgeries in stark block letters. Simone's hands begin to tremble. 4 different applications for business credit lines, all using counterfeit personal guarantees from Liam to leverage company equity. Simone's face drains of all color. Mr. Sterling pushes the binder in her direction. Please examine them. She opens it. The first page displays 2 signatures side by side. On the left is Liam's authentic signature from the company's founding charter. The L is smooth, decisive. On the screen, the signature from a partnership agreement signed last fall. It was close but rigid. The E was too precise. The N was broken. These agreements put our entire firm in jeopardy, Davies explains, pointing at the monitor. All to move capital to shell companies your client managed. He displays all 4 signature comparisons side by side. She didn't just defraud the company. She used Evelyn's name to indent the business he established. Davies passes a lengthy report to Catherine's attorney. We retained a digital forensics expert. 50 pages. The summary, a 99% chance of digital manipulation on all 4 documents. Clear signs of signature cloning, irregular pixelation. She lifted a real signature, probably from a public document, then used imaging software to place it on the partnership forms. Catherine's lawyer reads, her expression grim. Davies presses on, his voice firm. Your client leveraged her COO credentials to execute this. The same workstation used to register the shell companies was used for these forgeries. Catherine finally speaks, her voice thin. I would never. I lean closer, speaking for only the second time. You are trying to destroy our future. No, Evelyn, I promise. Davies interrupts her. We have more. He clicks open a final directory. In January, you attempted to implicate a junior programmer, creating false server records to connect him to the transfers. You informed Julian that his wife's own friend was orchestrating his downfall, Davies adds. But our investigators examined the true server data. The fabricated records came from your IP, not the programmers. You were setting up an innocent person. Catherine is weeping now, her composure gone. I was trapped. I was envious of what you two had. envious enough to forge four major contracts and devise a complex frame up, Davis says icily. He closes the file. Feeling trapped is not a justification for methodical sabotage. Davis darkens the room and turns his monitor toward us. The screen displays a message history, not a document. The dates are very recent. He begins to scroll. The study is completely still. My husband's name is at the top. Catherine's name is beside his. Casual messages, plans for discreet lunches, inside jokes. Davis clicks once, and the conclusive evidence fills the monitor. His voice is emotionless. And this establishes the reason why. The affair was documented in a stream of emails. Her pressuring him, dismissing me, planning a future without me. He pointed to one message she sent a month ago. She suspects, it said, she's asking questions. We have to accelerate things. Julian's reply was short. Be patient. Her last email on the tablet was ruthless. Patience is over. Once she's drowning in bottles and baby stuff, she won't notice a thing. And then the company will be ours. He stopped scrolling. The thread ended. A heavy silence filled the room, pierced by Elara's quiet weeping. Albright dimmed the tablet. Direct communication from the other party, she stated. Verified and irrefutable. She glanced at Julian. Mr. Thorne, care to comment? Julian finally looked at Elara, his face a cold mask. His tone was empty. A few weeks back, I discovered the unauthorized wire transfers. She confessed she moved the money, claiming it was for our new life. He pushed his own phone toward Elara's lawyer. This isn't my life. This was never my plan. I'm filing for divorce. We are also recommending criminal prosecution. She cloned Julian's digital credentials, siphoned funds from corporate accounts, and leveraged our company's credit to fund her acquisitions. Albright looked at Julian. Were you aware your chief operating officer owned a penthouse in Vancouver via a numbered company? No, not at all. State law might be complex, but our partnership charter is not. That asset is 50% mine. She concealed it completely. Julian faced Serafina, his voice finally breaking with fury. You destroyed our company. You betrayed my wife. You used my name. For what? A view of the skyline? Was it worth it? Serafina was weeping, avoiding his gaze. Julian, I am so sorry. We could. No, we're done. He rose from his chair. Elara, I'm so sorry I was blind to this. Miss Albright, I will give you my complete cooperation. He left the room without another word. The boardroom door slammed shut. Serafina dropped her head into her hands, her shoulders shaking. Her counsel quietly packed his things. Miss Albright, I need a moment alone with my client. Albright gave a sharp nod. You have 5 minutes. The adjacent office is empty. Her lawyer helped Serafina to her feet. She was so distraught she almost collapsed. They left. When their door closed, Albright faced me. It's finished for her. He knows it. What happens now? She accepts our settlement or she goes to jail. There is no third option. Maya squeezed my hand. We sat in the thick, tense air. The clock on the wall felt unnaturally loud. 6 minutes passed before the door opened. Her lawyer came back alone. Serafina was not with him. My client agrees to all your terms. Full repayment, relinquishing her partnership stake. The penthouse deed. His voice was hollow, defeated. Miss Albright nodded. A sensible path forward. Mr. Thorne cleared his throat. My client has one term. You agree to forego filing criminal charges. She restores the capital, she exits the firm, she disappears. That is the offer. Miss Albright glanced at me. The final decision is yours, Evelyn. All eyes in the conference room were on me. Mr. Thorne waited. No state charges. Do you agree? I looked at my lawyer. She leaned closer. Let's clarify all terms before Mrs. Davenport responds. Mr. Thorne concurred. Total restitution of $1,500,000. Partnership forfeiture valued at $750,000. The Gold Coast penthouse. Her resignation effective immediately, amounting to $2.25 million plus the property. Miss Albright clicked her pen. The payment timeline is 60 days in 2 transfers. Miss Albright took notes. To be specific, day 1, 1.5 million, day 60, the final 750,000. The property deed must be signed today. Her resignation is immediate. She renounces all claims, titles, and future earnings. A non disclosure agreement will be enforced. The criminal complaint is waived, pending full on time payment. If she is late, Mrs. Davenport reserves the right to notify the district attorney. Mr. Thorne scoffed. That schedule is unreasonable. Your client embezzled this over 2 years. She can find the liquidity in 60 days. Miss Albright's tone went cold. And Thorne, if a single transfer is delayed, we move forward. $2 million is a small price to pay to avoid 20 years in state prison. Mr. Thorne stood. I need to present this to my client. He walked out back to the office where Jessica was waiting. Miss Albright turned to me. Your thoughts? I exhaled a shaky breath. 20 years would destroy her life. She tried to destroy yours. I know, but Claire spoke softly from the corner. But what, Evelyn? She needs to be held accountable. Mark showed her endless chances because of our friendship. He didn't want to hurt me by taking down someone I cared for. Miss Albright's voice softened, and she leveraged that friendship to take more, I know. A tense quiet settled over the room. If she pays it all back on schedule, she stays out of jail. But if she misses a payment by a single minute, we proceed. Miss Albright confirmed, that is the offer Thorne presented. Then I accept. She gets one chance, that's it. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Jessica entered, her face blotchy and swollen, her gaze glued to the carpet. She slumped into her chair. Mr. Thorne spoke. My client accepts all conditions. Miss Albright presented a thick folder. A verbal confirmation won't suffice. We need this signed. She pushed the 12-page document across the table. Sections 1 to 4, repayment schedule. Section 5, asset transfer with the deed appended. Section 6, partnership dissolution. Section 7, the non-disclosure clause. Section 8, the conditional criminal complaint waiver. Sections 9 through 12, signature pages. Miss Albright looked at Jessica. Miss Vance, please sign on each indicated line. Jessica's hand trembled so badly she could hardly hold the pen. It took her almost 5 minutes to sign everything. Her name was an illegible scrawl. Mr. Thorne countersigned as her legal representative. Miss Albright turned to me. Mrs. Davenport. My own signature was steady and clear on every single line. Miss Albright added her name as my counsel. I will have this notarized and filed by end of day. The deed will be recorded tomorrow. The first payment is due now. Mr. Thorne's head snapped up. Now, upon signing. That was the term. The wire instructions are in the final appendix. Due by 5 p.m. this evening. Mr. Thorne gave a terse nod. Understood. Jessica's voice was a ragged whisper. Evelyn, can I just explain? No, please, I need you to know. Stop. We were friends. I treated you like family. I stood up. You gave up the right to speak to me. The room went utterly still. I looked Jessica square in the eye. Everyone was frozen. My voice was glacial. You didn't just steal from the company. That I might have forgiven. A terrible mistake, a moment of desperation. I could have found a way past that. But you tried to sink our entire firm. You falsified invoices 16 times, spoofed emails from my account, and created a paper trail implicating our lead contractor. You went to my husband and tried to convince him I was mismanaging our biggest accounts. You actively tried to sabotage my work. Jessica whimpered. I was desperate. You were surgical. You planned every fake wire transfer, opened offshore accounts, and built an elaborate cover story. That's not desperation. That is pure malice. Mark trusted you. He made you a partner in our firm because he believed in you and our friendship. He has carried the weight of this investigation for months. My voice shook. The stress almost undid him. He was supposed to be excited about our baby, about our life together. I regained my composure. I'm not blaming you for everything, but you poisoned what should have been the most joyful period of our lives. You filled it with lies. You didn't just betray our business. You betrayed a friendship. You tried to ruin my work, my husband, and our future. And now you have nothing. Your career, your name, your partnership, your home, it's gone. I leaned forward. Was it worth it? Did that penthouse feel like a home? Jessica was weeping silently. I don't forgive you. I don't want your apologies. I want you gone. I turned to her attorney. Ensure she understands this. A late payment, and I call the DA. You contact me or my husband, I call the DA. You come near our home or our office, I call the DA. She has this single chance to repay her debt and vanish. I looked at my lawyer. I am done. I walked to the door. Before I left, I looked back. We were friends. You shattered that. Never forget it. I walked out. Claire was right behind me. We rode the elevator down in silence. As we hit the ground floor, my phone buzzed. A text from Miss Albright. Transfer confirmed. $1.5 million, 4:58 p.m. She made it. It started. I just stared at the screen. 4:58. 2 minutes before the deadline. She ran it right to the wire. Claire read the message over my shoulder. You won. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. A year of quiet doubts, a month of secret digging, a 5-hour confrontation, and it was over. That night I sat in Claire's apartment holding a mug of chamomile tea. The place was silent, but my thoughts were loud. Claire was curled on the sofa across from me, studying my face. How are you really doing? She finally asked. I have no idea. Hollow, I guess. Relieved, furious, everything at once. That makes sense. You've been operating on adrenaline for a month. The crash is coming. I can't stop replaying how Mark had to keep this from me, collecting proof while pretending everything was normal. He would come home and hold me and never say a word about it. He was trying to protect you and the baby. I know, but he shouldn't have had to do it by himself. We're supposed to be a team. He wanted to spare you the pain, so instead he carried it all. The betrayal from someone he mentored, the fury, the awful weight of knowing our friend was trying to destroy us. A long, quiet stretch between us. I finally lifted my tea, its warmth offering little solace. I just worry this has broken something in us for good, I said, my voice thin. My doctors are always telling me to avoid stress, but this, an affair, embezzlement, a complete betrayal? What if this entire nightmare, him keeping this secret, what if it's damaged more than just our finances? Claire's voice was resolute. You can't let your mind go there. It will just make you sick. I know, but it's hard. I set my mug down. Mark made his choices. He decided to handle this quietly. He decided to have irrefutable evidence before he told me. He did all that to protect his family, and you saw it through for him. I did. I hope he knows that. At last the tears came, not from sadness, but from pure gut-wrenching exhaustion. 3 weeks of being wound so tight, I finally snapped. Claire moved over and just held me while I cried. It's done, Evelyn. It's really done. The next 60 days were a haze. Life continued. I managed design projects, met with contractors, and went to my doctor's appointments. But just beneath the surface, I was counting down, waiting for the final transfer. On day one, that first $1.5 million appeared. I had spent the entire afternoon watching my phone, certain Jessica would default, and this would become a criminal matter. When Miss Albright's text came through at 4:58, just 2 minutes before the cutoff, I felt like I could finally take a full breath. In mid-May, day 61, my lawyer's call arrived. It's concluded, Evelyn. The last wire transfer from Thorne's office just cleared. The remaining $750,000. I rested a hand on my growing belly. You're free, she said. Jessica was gone. The affair was over. My new chapter was starting. This was never about revenge. It was about our security. That afternoon, I found a listing for a brownstone in Lincoln Park. I contacted the realtor and submitted a full cash offer, wiring the funds from the settlement account. The confirmation email felt like a fresh start. A home for my son, bought and paid for by the woman who nearly cost us everything. There is a certain poetry in that. My sister Claire came for dinner that Friday. We were starting a new weekly tradition. She was unusually pensive. I saw someone today, she said, moving her salad around the plate. Serafina was at the cafe. I set my water down. And what did she have to say? She was fired from the tech firm. Julian's divorce wiped her out financially. She's moving back home to Oregon with her folks. Perfect, Maya watched me. She asked if you'd ever be willing to speak with her. I told her that was out of the question for now. The board is still auditing the unauthorized company expenditures, Maya mentioned. He violated his fiduciary duty. It's separate from the divorce, but he might lose his CEO position. You think he will? I wondered. It's possible. His reputation is already gone. He has no one to blame but himself. I understand, Maya said gently. I told Serafina that rationalizing isn't the same as taking responsibility. She just kept blaming her drive to succeed. That sounds like her problem, not mine. Perhaps in a few years, if she ever demonstrates true remorse. But I won't hold my breath. April, 4 months after the divorce was final. I turned my laptop toward Maya over dinner. The screen showed a web page titled The Polaris Initiative for Mothers in Tech. It was designed to help women launch their own businesses. I'm seeding it with $100,000, I told her. It provides three key resources. First, startup capital. Second, grants for childcare. And third, a network of mentors for women re entering the tech world after a personal crisis. Maya's eyes were shining. Julian's deception gave me this focus. I'm creating something positive from all that destruction. My lawyer joined the board of directors. Even Maya pledged $5,000. The very first grant was awarded to a young coder from Portland. My co founder pushed me out when I announced my pregnancy. I had to shelve my project, she explained to me. This gives me a second chance. I gave her a hug, thinking of my own baby boy. We were transforming our private pain into public empowerment. Tonight, I'm sitting in his freshly painted room. The ultrasound image of my son is propped on the dresser. Next to it, in a drawer, is my wedding portrait turned face down. It's a reminder of the reality. Julian was a liar. He maintained a secret life, a hidden agenda. But lies can't stay hidden. A strange feeling had made me check our credit card statement that morning. Some people call it a sixth sense. I call it a mother's instinct, shielding her child from a danger she didn't even understand yet. When I saw those resort booking emails to Serafina, the betrayal almost broke me. But it also unlocked a resolve I never knew I had. This was never just about a broken marriage. It was about protecting my son's future. Don't make my mistake. Don't dismiss that inner voice. The deepest wounds come from the ones we trust the most. Trust is earned. Forgiveness is a choice, but accountability is a necessity. When your intuition is screaming that something is wrong, pay attention. That feeling is your own personal guardian. If my story resonated with you, please leave a comment about what justice means to you after being betrayed. Share this with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe for more real life stories. Believe in your strength and trust, your intuition. Model.